खलीफा के हम हैं खलीफा हमारा,
वो दिल है हमारा आका हमारा,
हमारा हमारा खलीफा हमारा, वो दिल है हमारा आका हमारा, वो दिल है हमारा आका हमारा.
Assalamu alaikum et bienvenue à l'émission Cette semaine avec le Calife. Nous sommes honorés de vous présenter les points forts du Symposium national sur la paix pour l'an 2024 et le discours principal prononcé par Sa Sainteté le cinquième Calife. Le lendemain, Sa Sainteté le Calife a également tenu des rencontres avec plusieurs délégations internationales qui avaient fait le déplacement pour assister au Symposium sur la paix. Voici les points forts du week-end dernier. Samedi, Sa Sainteté le cinquième Calife, qu'Allah soit son soutien, prononçait un discours historique lors du Symposium national annuel sur la paix organisé par la communauté musulmane Ahmadiyya. Les invités de 30 pays étaient présents pour l'événement qui s'est tenu à la mosquée Batul Futuh. Après les préliminaires, Sa Sainteté le Calife a décerné le prix musulman Ahmadiyya pour la paix pour l'année 2020 et 2023. Le prix 2020 a été décerné à Hadi Patricia Roche pour son soutien aux victimes de la catastrophe de Tchernobyl. Sa Sainteté le Calife a également remis à David Spurdle, fondateur de l'association caritative Stand By Me, le prix 2023 pour son soutien aux orphelins et aux enfants défavorisés à travers le monde. Lors de son discours, Sa Sainteté le Calife a évoqué les conflits qui font rage à Gaza et en Ukraine, et il a présenté les solutions qu'offre l'islam pour établir la paix.
The stark reality is that even those institutions founded with the primary objective of maintaining the peace and security of the world are becoming increasingly irrelevant. For example, the United Nations has become a weak and almost powerless body where a few dominant nations wield all the power and easily override the views of the majority. Instead of deciding each issue based on its facts and merits, nations have formed alliances and vote according to their self-interests. Ultimately, critical decisions are made by a few privileged nations in whose hands rests the veto power. Instead of faithfully serving the cause of peace and justice, they wield their veto like a trump card wherever their narrow interests are threatened, irrespective of whether their decision shatters the peace and prosperity of other nations and leads to the death and destruction of scores of innocent people. Let it be clear, therefore, that where a veto power exists, the scales of justice can never be balanced. Regrettably, due to its inherent lack of justice, the fate of the United Nations seems set to mirror that of its failed predecessor, the League of Nations. And if the system of international law, weak as it may be, completely collapses, the resulting anarchy and destruction is beyond our comprehension. Whilst there are myriad of conflicts taking place in the world, the most pressing and dangerous are those taking place between Israel and Hamas and the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. Some people may believe or may have been conditioned to think that the conflict between Israel and Palestine is a religious war. However, in reality, it is a geopolitical and territorial conflict. As for the war in Ukraine, it is very evidently a geopolitical war being fought for territorial reasons. I firmly believe there is only one way to end these wars, by ensuring that justice prevails and that whatever settlements are made are based on equity as opposed to what better serves interests of external powers. Otherwise, there is no benefit to the United Nations or international laws, and the only rule that shall hold weight will be the one that declares might is right. In terms of the Ukraine war, Russia has a veto power at the UN Security Council, whilst in effect Ukraine also has won by virtue of its alliance with those Western nations who have permanent membership of the Security Council. How can a settlement be agreed if both sides can effectively wield a veto? Why would either party be motivated to move even an inch if they know they can veto any deal not weighted entirely in their favor? As for what is happening in Gaza, though both the Israelis and the Palestinians have their supporters, the veto power has only been used in Israel's favor since the current war ignited several months ago. For example, in February, 13 out of 15 members of the UN Security Council voted in favor of an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, but the United States utilized its veto power and the resolution was defeated. How can peace be established where the majority view is so easily discarded? That is not justice. Instead, it is a rejection of democracy and principle of equality. Contrary to these man-made laws, Islam's teachings emphasize justice to such a degree that chapter 5, verse 9 of the Holy Quran states that the enmity of any nation or people must never incite one to deviate from the path of justice and fairness. Manifesting such integrity is nearer to righteousness. Even non-religious people will surely recognize the wisdom and benefit of adopting this preeminent standard of justice. With all my heart, I hope and pray that before it is too late, the world comes to its senses and brings an end to the brutalities and wars taking place in the world. Certainly, it is my opinion that there should be a full ceasefire between Israel and Hamas or Palestine, and also in the war between Russia and Ukraine. Thereafter, instead of inciting their respective allies towards further warfare, all members of the international community should prioritize ensuring relief effort or stepped up to help those in desperate need and focus on bringing about a lasting and peaceful settlement. If instead we stand by and let these wars escalate further, countless more innocent lives will be lost. And surely history will judge us with contempt as the author of our own destruction and misery. And so, in conclusion, if we wish to save our future generation from being born with the ill effects of radiation caused by nuclear warfare and desire to save them from deprivation and desperation, and if we wish to save ourselves from their curses and laments, we must act with urgency and wisdom.
When you think of modern day warfare and its lethal potential, as His Holiness referred to, And it was music to my ears to hear it as a leader, because no other leaders are talking about nuclear proliferation. No leaders of any country that I know of are actually speaking about, the nuclear arms race, how it's now back in the fray, and all of the achievements of the past are being undone. And it takes a lot of vision and a lot of courage, which came from His Holiness tonight.
I really thought his speech was thought-provoking. I think he's courageous to criticise Israel and criticise America. These people are ruining the lives of thousands of children, and I really think His Holiness was brave in saying what he said in the way that he said it, and what he said is true, because what he said about the democracy not existing is true. How many people say that? But he had the courage to say that tonight, and I admire him for that.
I think for me the reflection on the Security Council and the ability to veto is really pertinent. I actually haven't heard anyone else speak about that recently, and how can we develop the UN to be more instrumental for peace?
I was particularly impressed, and I learnt a lot from the references to the Holy Quran in relation to peace building. And those are messages which people of all faiths and none should follow, certainly can follow and should follow.
His Holiness is a very, very intellectual, intelligent person who has analyzed the world situation very carefully, and his analysis and his conclusions are absolutely right. The only way to peace.
And I think he reflected that very well about how the United Nations is structured, about how America can effectively veto so much. And if we're going to get to peace, it needs to be a fair and just settlement on both sides. It can't just be fair and just for one side. So I think what he said was absolutely, perfect. And it would be something which I think Western countries find difficult to actually enact. But I think many in their hearts would absolutely agree with it.
I think what I liked about the speech was that I think he faced the issues head on. And I thought that it was insightful. And I thought that part of it that I like is that he was also talking about how wars should be conducted in an ethical way. And I thought for me that was a realistic approach, meaning that he acknowledged that there will be conflict sometimes, but that there is a way to try to manage it, to make it better and to last less.
I thought that His Holiness's address was extremely powerful. It was really a tour de force of all the challenges that we're facing across the world in areas of conflict, and the severe humanitarian impact that that's having, the lives being lost, the areas that are being devastated, and the choices that we could try and make differently, and how that is all connected to a wider view and more strategic view we should have of geopolitics.
Earlier in the day, some guests from Austria who had travelled to attend the Peace Symposium were honoured to meet Hazrat Khalifatul Masih V, may Allah be his helper, in Islamabad. After the mulaqat, they expressed their sentiments.
What I found is that his concern for his community and the persecuted in his community is very big concern. He is a very gentle religious leader, which is not always the case. A real gentleman, and he somehow expresses empathy. That's what I understand a religious leader should be like.
Very impressive, and I was very excited, but he's such a nice person, and so such a warm person, and he welcomed us so friendly, and it was really nice.
Le lendemain, dimanche le 10 mars, Sa Sainteté le Calife a accordé une audience à plus d'une douzaine de délégations étrangères qui étaient venues de l'étranger pour assister au Symposium sur la paix. L'un de ceux qui a eu la chance de rencontrer sa sainteté le calife était Robert Rehac, président de l'Alliance internationale pour la liberté religieuse et de croyance.
I was surprised that His Holiness is really a nice person with sense of humor. When he asked how we feel about the whole event, I said that I have just one complaint, that we were spoiled by your hospitality. And he was laughing, and then we changed also some another jokes. And I think this is the best way, because the Ahmadi community is persecuted in the world, but the approach of your community and His Holiness is to turn to the others and to try to help them and to restore peace, which is the best way. For me, Ahmadiyya community is an excellent example. If all the religious community would follow the path, we have paradise here on earth.
It's a beautiful feeling, a feeling of peace, that somebody is here looking after us and somebody up there is looking after us. It's an extremely wonderful feeling, and I'm very honored. We are coming with a message of peace from Switzerland, which is again met by a message of peace by His Holiness. And I think that was beautiful, expressed yesterday by His Holiness' speech about uniting the world in peace, and a very clear message to the politicians to see above their own interest, but of the interest of the whole world.
His smile is so comfortable. Make you not unknown. You know, you feel like in your home, like with your friends.
It's been a very warm meeting. His Holiness is a person that transmits a sense of peace, and I am very pleased to have been here and meeting so clever, so peaceful person. The speech of His Holiness is a very inspiring speech, and he's a very strong person because he has denounced the paper of United Nations, and I am thinking deeply about what he said yesterday.
It was really an enriching meeting because we could talk about United Nations Security Council and about the problems that we are facing as a global nation. We should come all together, and I'm also convinced, just like the Calife, that we should change the world system. And it was also beautiful to see that he also mentioned also not only Palestine, but also the problems in Sudan, the problems in Ethiopia, the problems that the world is facing. So we need a sort of world authority. And as the Calife is saying this to the people and to the world, that we need to change the system to make a better world for everyone. A world with no hate and more love, the principles of the Ahmadiyya. So it's really nice to see that the Calife is bringing this message around the world, that the people can hear this message. You have to be very courageous to do it. Not a lot of political leaders dare to do it. He, as a religious leader, is a real leader. Because I think if you are really spiritual, if you are really religious, you also want to change the world, you want to make it a better place for everyone to live. So I'm happy that he is bringing this fantastic political and religious message to the world. So having this conversation with the Calife makes me really happy.
Par la grâce d'Allah, sa sainteté le cinquième calife, qu'Allah soit son soutien, a de nouveau présenté le message du vrai islam lors de ce symposium sur la paix à une audience internationale. Et il a demandé à chacun de jouer son rôle en faveur de la paix mondiale. Qu'Allah permette à tout un chacun d'écouter ce message. C'était là les points forts de quelques-unes des activités du calife le week-end dernier. Nous terminons maintenant par le résumé du sermon du vendredi. Dans son dernier sermon du vendredi, sa sainteté le calife a évoqué les grandes bénédictions du mois du Ramadan. À la fin, il a prié pour que ce mois soit béni pour nous tous, et il a également prié pour l'état général du monde, Il a également évoqué une nouvelle loi qui a été passée au Royaume-Uni qui, selon certains analystes, cible les musulmans.
اللہ تعالیٰ ہمیں رمضان اللہ تعالیٰ کی رضا پر چلتے ہوئے تقوی سے گزارنے کی توفیق عطا فرمائے. ہمیں اپنے تقوی کے معیار اونچے کرنے کی توفیق دے. نہ ہی روزوں سے بچنے کے بہانے ہم تلاش کرنے والے ہوں اور نہ بلا وجہ سختی اور اپنے اوپر وارد کرنے والے ہوں، اور ہمیشہ اسلام کی خوبصورت تعلیم پر عمل کرنے والے ہوں. اور اس رمضان میں ہم اللہ تعالیٰ کی بے شمار برکات حاصل کرنے والے ہوں. ہر دن ہمارے لیے برکتوں اور رحمتوں کے سامان لے کر آئے. رمضان سے ہم حقیقی فیضیاب ہونے والے ہوں. یہ رمضان ہمیں اللہ تعالیٰ کے قریب تر کرنے والا ہو. مقبول دعاؤں کی ہمیں توفیق ملے. تمام دنیا کے احمدی جماعتی ترقیات اور تمام مشکلات دور ہونے کے لیے بھی دعا کریں. مسلمان دنیا کے لیے بھی دعا کریں. اللہ تعالیٰ انہیں عقل اور سمجھ دے اور وہ آنے والے مسیح موعود اور مہدی موعود کو ماننے والے ہوں. جنگوں کے بد اثرات سے بچنے کے لیے بھی دعا کریں. مسلمان ممالک میں اقتدار کی خاطر جو جنگیں لڑی جا رہی ہیں اور اس کے نتیجے میں جو معصوم عوام ظلم کی چکی میں پس رہے ہیں، اللہ تعالیٰ ان پر رحم کرتے ہوئے ان ظالموں سے نجات دے. دنیا کے عمومی حالات کے لیے بھی دعا کریں. اللہ تعالیٰ جنگ اور اس کے خطرناک نتائج سے بچائے. جنگ کی صورت میں ظاہر ہے کہ احمدی بھی اس سے متاثر ہوں گے. اللہ تعالیٰ انہیں اسے محفوظ رکھے. اس سے بچنے کے لیے بھی ہر احمدی کو اپنے تقوی کا معیار اونچا کرنا ہوگا. یہی حضرت مسیح علیہ السلام نے فرمایا ہے. اللہ تعالیٰ اس کی بھی ہر ایک کو توفیق دے. یہاں بھی لگتا ہے یو کے میں بھی مسلمانوں کے گرد دائرہ تنگ کرنے کی کوشش کی جا رہی ہے. ایک قانون شدت پسندی کو ختم کرنے کے لیے لایا گیا ہے، لیکن عمومی تجزیہ کاروں کا خیال یہ ہے کہ یہ مسلمانوں کو ٹارگٹ کرنے کے لیے ہے. بہرحال اللہ تعالیٰ بہتر جانتا ہے کہ اس کے پیچھے کیا ارادے ہیں ان لوگوں کے، لیکن دعا کرنی چاہیے کہ اللہ تعالیٰ ہمیں بھی اور یہاں کے باقی مسلمانوں کو بھی اس کے شر سے محفوظ رکھے.